Next we have the thrones, or the ophanim. These are about as far from a traditional looking angel as one can get. In Christianity, the ophanim were the entities that acted as chariots or transportation for the cherubim. They were giant interlocking wheels with wings and eyes that would reside in the part of the cosmos where material form began to shape. Like the seraphim, they would also chant God's glory whenever in His presence. The Book of Enoch describes them as the many-eyed ones, and places them in the same category of celestial being as the cherubim and seraphim. Their role here was much more than transportation. The ophanim never sleep, and forever guard the throne of God. When Ezekiel has his vision of the great chariot, he describes all three of these angels as the guardians. But given the strange nature of what he's describing, some believe this was a hallucination. Others take Ezekiel's account as an encounter with UFOs, so no one really knows where they came from and why they look so strange. The virtues are a group of angels who do not possess a physical body, but have control over the elements. They were referred to as the shining ones because they appear as sparks of light. The main role of the virtues was to perform miracles for those who were deemed as deserving. They would receive orders from the angels above them and travel to Earth to perform these miracles. Once on Earth, they would assume a human form. There are several types of angels along with the virtues whose primary form resembles a source of light. Angels are celestial beings. They are neither male nor female, and essentially they can take whatever form they desire. Is it a surprise that the angels who spend all of their time in the cosmos with God are the strangest and most unorthodox looking? No, not really.
Angels. Even if you haven't touched the Bible, you probably have an idea on what they look like. They're those elegant, heavenly beings with long white robes, swan-like wings, and perhaps a halo on top for good measure. We also know what angel babies or cherubs look like. Those small, chubby, cute infants clasping a bow and arrow. The kind of thing you might see on a Valentine's Day card. Except, well, that's not what angels actually look like. Not according to the Bible. These are biblically accurate angels. These horrifying abominations are more suited to an H.P. Lovecraft novel, not really the Bible. So what are these things? Why do they look this way? And how have we got angels so wrong? Okay, so angels come from the Old Testament, the first half of the Bible for Christians, or the whole Bible, known as the Tanakh, for Jews. The Old Testament was written down in modern-day Israel and Palestine from about the 6th century BCE to the 3rd century BCE, although many scholars believe the biblical stories themselves are much older. We get the word angel from the Greek angelos, originally from the Hebrew word malach, which roughly translates to messenger. These messengers appear in the Old Testament a number of times. They carry God's messages from heaven and earth, and sometimes act on His behalf. For example, you might recognise the angel of death in the Passover story that slaughtered all the first sons of the Egyptians, or perhaps the angel that struck 70,000 Israelites to death, and the angel that single-handedly killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in one night. When they appear in the Bible, they aren't described as having wings. In fact, they look like any ordinary person. In the later biblical texts, such as Daniel, some even get names: Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael. Okay, this all sounds familiar, but they're not quite the nightmare material freak abominations we saw before. The angels, known as malach, are not the only heavenly beings in the Bible. There's a hierarchy of them, and depending on who you ask, your classic humanoid angels are actually pretty far down the ladder. In the Middle Ages, a Jewish scholar known as Maimonides drew up a hierarchy of angels, and if you look here, your classic humanoid angels, the malach, are pretty low down. But not quite as low as cherubim. Forget those chubby winged angels. According to the Bible, cherubim are animal-human hybrids. The first time you see them is in the book of Genesis, right after Adam and Eve have been kicked out the garden. Their job is to guard the Garden of Eden from mankind. Our best description of a cherubim comes from the book of Ezekiel. It opens with the prophet experiencing a profound vision. In his vision, Ezekiel describes them as living creatures, but they're later revealed in chapter 10 as cherubim. His account is as follows. In the middle of it was something like 4 living creatures. This was their appearance. They were of human form. Each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Under their wings, on their 4 sides, they had human hands, and the 4 had their faces and their wings thus. Their wings touched one another. Each of them moved straight ahead, without turning as they moved. As for the appearance of their faces, the 4 had the face of a human being, the face of a lion on their right side, the face of an ox on their left side, and the face of an eagle. Such were their faces. Their wings were spread out above. Each creature had 2 wings, each of which touched the wing of another, while 2 covered their bodies. Each moved straight ahead. Wherever the spirit would go, they went, without turning as they went. In the middle of the living creatures, there was something that looked like burning coals of fire, like torches moving to and fro among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and lightning issued from the fire. The living creatures darted to and fro, like a flash of lightning. The cherubim don't look like your average angel. Instead, they look more like the mythical beasts in ancient Mesopotamia, especially the Babylonian iamasu, which is the wings of an eagle, the body of a lion, and the head of a king. These would act as guardians to sacred places like temples, or the palace or city walls, and performed a similar role to the biblical cherubim. They look similar to their Egyptian cousin, the Sphinx, or the Hittite griffin. Many believe that these biblical angels were descendants of these mythological creatures from Mesopotamia. There would have been a lot of cultural exchange, and the same sorts of mythical creatures would crop up across these regions. Cherubim in later Christianity may have been imported from Greek and Roman myths, borrowing from the shapes of Cupid or Pluto. Moving up the list, we get these guys, seraphim. They have 6 wings, 2 used for flying, and the other pair for covering the angel's face, and the third pair for covering the angel's feet. They're described in the book of Isaiah as follows. Seraphs were in attendance above him. Each had 6 wings, with 2 they covered their faces, and with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they flew. And one called the other and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, and the whole earth is full of his glory. In medieval Christian theology, seraphim is the highest choir of the angelic hierarchy. They are the caretakers of God's throne, again continuously singing Holy, 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 again to the strangest beings in the Bible, the ophanim, or simply known as the wheels. They're a pair of interlocking gold wheels with eyes around the outside, and they hover and float in the sky. In the same vision as before, Ezekiel describes them alongside the cherubim. Quote, As I looked to the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the earth beside the living creatures, one for each of the 4 of them. As for the appearance of the wheels and their construction, their appearance was like the gleaming of beryl, and the 4 had the same form, their construction being something like a wheel within a wheel. When they moved in any of the 4 directions without veering as they moved.